Flowers of Evil, episode 4. Now, one thing I've noticed just before I start this review of episode 4 of Flowers of Evil, the episodes of Flowers of Evil don't have names. Literally, when the program starts, you have a little bit of thing before the actual, intro, and then literally when the intro starts, it just says, like, for example, today it said, Flowers of Evil, episode 4 of 13, on, like, the main sort of title card. The episodes don't have names. They're just called episode 1 of 13, 2 of 13, 3 of 13, 4 of 13, whatever. Okay, episode 4 of Flowers of Evil, review. Let's go. This was easily the weirdest episode out of the series so far. Easily. Like, what the fuck did I just watch? Weird. Okay. Basically. Okay, I have to backtrack to the end of episode 3. The end of episode 3. I can't remember what her fucking name was. Mari or some shit. I can't remember her name, but there was a girl who said that her lunch money had gone missing. And everyone blamed Nakamura, the weird girl, the psycho bitch, as I'm calling her. I've started calling her the psycho bitch after what I've seen in episode 4, and I'll get to why I'm calling her that in a minute. So basically, Nakamura, the psycho bitch, was blamed for taking this money. And Takao stuck up for her and said, it wasn't, he said, Nakamura might be strange, but it doesn't mean that she took the money. So that is where episode 3 begins. Basically, the episode starts with Takao coming out of the room, the sort of home room, just after he said what he said at the end of episode 3. And he's saying to himself, why did I say that? Why did I say that? And he walks down the corridor away, and then Sakai comes up to him. Saiki-san? Sakai-san? No. They call her Saiki-san in the episode, so I'm going to call her Saiki. Saiki comes up to him and says, oh, I like how you stuck up for Nakamura, because I don't think she did it either. And she said to Takao that she was impressed with how he stuck up for Nakamura. And basically, Takao went home and feeling all pleased with himself and shit. But before he went home feeling all pleased with himself, there was a scene with Nakamura and Takao at the river, where it's become like their usual spot for meeting. They meet at this river and they sit there and shit happens. And Nakamura basically asks Takao, what are you smirking about? What are you feeling so happy with yourself for? And he goes, oh, it's nothing. And then Nakamura grabs him and squeezes his face with both her hands like this. So he's like this, basically. And says to him, you're hiding something. You have to tell me everything, because of the contract that we set up. You have to tell me everything. And Takao's like, no, I don't have anything to hide. I'm not, And she's like, oh, okay then. And then she leaves it. And then Takao goes home. He's feeling all pleased with himself and shit. And he writes like a poem about Sakai. I can't remember what the poem was. I'd have to watch the episode again. But he writes some poem and then puts it in a box with her gym uniform and then tapes the box up. And he says, I'm never opening the box, and I'm never looking at her uniform. He said, I'll never smell it again. And all this weird fetish type stuff. And basically, so he's like doing that. Takes the box up and says, I'll never do this again. The next day, he's walking down the corridor, the same corridor as before, basically replaying in his head what Saiki-san said. Basically, I was really impressed how you stood up for Nakamura and all this. And then just as he's thinking that, Saiki-san comes out with 2 boxes in her arms. And he says, oh, where are you going with these boxes? And she says, you know, I need to take this to, the teacher told me to take this to, you know, a certain room, whatever. And he says, oh, do you want some help? And she goes, yeah. So cuts to Takao carrying the boxes, walking with Saiki-san to wherever they're going. And she's asking him, you know, general, you know, stuff. And she asks, oh, what do you like to do in your spare time? And he says, oh, I like reading books. I like books. He says, there's a used bookstore that I go to a lot. And he says, basically, oh, would you like to meet up with me and go to the bookstore on like a day? And then I think he realizes what he said at that point, and he's really like, sort of like, oh shit, you know, like, what did I just say? Oh my god. And he doesn't look where he's going, and he almost falls down the stairs, but Saiki grabs him and holds him so he doesn't fall, but he drops the boxes. And she's just standing there holding him, and she says, yeah, I can meet you on Sunday. And just after she says that, Nakamura appears at the bottom of the stairs, and she sees them, and the most evil smirk crosses her face. And then she walks away. Then it cuts to basically Takao in his house at night, lying on the floor in the middle of his room. He's got a bed, but he's lying in the middle of the floor for some reason, sleeping, and he's thinking in his head about, you know, he's going on a date with Saiki-san. You know, it's good, it's a good thing, but Nakamura saw them. And then he gets all strict. He's like, I need to read a book. I need to read a book now. And just as he's looking for a book on his bookshelf, he hears like a sort of a against the window, and he looks, and someone throwing rocks against the window, well, not rocks, but stones against the window. And he looks out, and it's Nakamura. And he comes out, and Nakamura just grabs him and pulls him away and says, let's go for a walk. She doesn't say anything, and then she stops and then says, I heard you had a date with Saiki-san on Sunday. And then she doesn't say anything. She's just looking at him like sort of, you know, and she just turns around and goes, literally, it must have been after about 30 seconds of just looking at him. She says, oh, well done, very good. Are you excited and all this? And he's just like, the fuck? The guy's like, what the hell? And it's really weird. And then, basically, cuts to the day of the, anyway, before that, sorry, Nakamura's like, oh, when is it? Where is it? And she goes, oh, I'm meeting her outside the school at 10 o'clock. And Nakamura says, well, meet me 30 minutes before that and bring Sakai's gym uniform with you. And he's like, what's going on? So it cuts to the next day, 9 o'clock. Takao says, oh, I said I wasn't going to take this gym uniform out of the box. But he brings it with him, and he gets to the school, and Nakamura's like, oh, come here, come here. And she takes him to a women's toilet, like a public toilet. She goes, go inside. And he's like, what? This is the ladies' toilet. He says, go inside, go inside. So he goes inside, pushes him inside, locks him in a cubicle with her, and says to him, during the date today, you are going to wear Saiki's uniform underneath your clothes. And he's like, you said I wouldn't have to do anything bad with the uniform. And she just fucking pins him up against the wall. And she's like, I want to see, you know, he says, you do what I say, you sicko piece of shit. That's what she called him, a sicko piece of shit. She goes, you do what I say, you sicko piece of shit. You put the uniform on now. And he goes, why? I don't want to do this. And she goes, because I want to see a real sicko in action or something. So obviously, and then it cuts to him outside again, but obviously just finishing putting on the gym uniform, and he's got it under his normal clothes. And then Saiki turns up. And basically, she's like, oh, were you waiting long? He's like, no. And she's like, well, what do you want to do? and he says, do you want to go to the used bookstore that I was talking about? So she says, yeah. And then they're walking to the bookstore, and as they're walking to the bookstore, Takao turns around and he sees Nakamura looking round from behind a wall at them. So she's sort of like spying on them. And then the episode ends as Sakai and Takao are walking to the bookshop. So in the next episode, episode 5, will be, I assume, the date. And as I said earlier, episode 4, today's episode, was easily the weirdest episode out of all 4 so far. It gets probably 8 out of 10. It was a good episode. It was just really fucking weird. This show's getting really good now. I've got a feeling something really bad is going to fucking happen when they fucking next episode. Some shit is going to go down.